Hello, and welcome to our build guide for a very relaxing setup for Warlock Mastery. The Torment is an unusual type of damaging ailment, as it can be applied only once, but the damage it offers is massive. Its only source is the Chthonic Fissure skill, and thanks to its skill tree you will deal more damage with Torment by stacking Necrotic Resistance and Critical Strike Multiplier. As a supportive skill, you will use the Spirit Plague. It deals small amounts of damage but grants you a stacking buff that increases all damage you deal. It is also used to apply debuffs such as Fear, which provides a very powerful form of crowd control against weaker enemies. The Profane Veil is another very important skill for this setup. While channeling this skill you will dodge every incoming hit, and you will consume your minions to instantly gain massive amounts of ward. By increasing the minion's health you will increase the amount of ward you recover. The minions in question are quite unconventional. The Bone Prison created by Bone Curse is considered a minion with a very high amount of health, which you can consume to gain tons of ward. Your remaining ward will come from the low life setup with specific unique items. The main reason to pick this setup is the traditional gameplay of damage over time build that doesn't require constant reapplying. You can achieve very high amounts of ward with a method to quickly recover it in case of danger, paired with access to a strong crowd control effect. On top of that, your boss fights are very safe due to the high uptime of Profane Veil, which makes you almost immortal, while your Torment continues to deal damage. You will have excellent damage with low gear requirements to start. You will breeze through the campaign as soon as you unlock the Warlock Mastery. Of course, this gameplay has some backdraws that you should know of. The Chthonic Fissure skill has high mana consumption and requires proper skill usage management, which is especially noticeable during echoes. It is not a problem against bosses. This style is also its downfall. The single target damage is limited by the single stack of Torment, which can make boss fights a bit longer at higher corruption levels. Most of your ward comes from specific modifiers that generate it based on your missing health, available on specific unique and experimental items, but you don't need it to farm low corruption levels. The more health you have, the more ward it will generate. The other items are very synergistic with the modifiers they provide but are not required for functionality. The Marina's Lost Soul is a simple wand, but it grants you exactly what you need. It offers a lot of flat necrotic damage for your spells and decently increases your spell and curse damage. Unfortunately, it also lowers your maximum health a bit. The Exsanguinus is one of the core items for your ward generation. It drains your health, but restores a portion of your missing health as ward, which you can then boost via ward retention or ward decay threshold. You will also gain a decent boost to your movement speed when you use a potion. This pair of boots offers the same modifier as the previous armor, further improving your ward generation. It also offers a decent amount of movement speed, but unfortunately, it is mostly negated due to the chill applied to you every 3 seconds. Your skills will cleanse negative effects on you, but not as often as those boots apply it. This helmet offers plenty of intelligence and necrotic resistance, and greatly increases your ward generation thanks to the resistance modifier you stack anyway. It is fairly common, so getting one with good legendary potential shouldn't be too daunting to acquire. The most important modifiers to scale your damage are flat damage for spells, necrotic resistance, critical strike multiplier, and intelligence. The various increases to your spell or necrotic damage are also good, but you shouldn't prioritize them. You will also need some mana regeneration to comfortably spam your fissure during echoes, although it is not that important against bosses. The necrotic resistance and intelligence are also the main methods to improve your ward. You will need an experimental mod on your gloves that grants you a ward based on the missing health, which is why you should improve your maximum health too. By increasing the health of your minions you will improve the vampiric pool interaction. Capping your critical strike avoidance at 100% is mandatory for your survival. Your idols are useful, but they do not provide any build-enabling modifiers. You can use them to get more health, ward retention, stack more resistances or improve your spell damage a bit. If you find yourself channeling to Profane Veil very often, you can try to get a modifier that generates ward for each second spent in the Veil. Your basic Acolyte tree is focused mostly on defense. It will boost your ward, resistance, and intelligence. During leveling, you can pick Blood Aura, Blood Pact, and Eye of Damnation to boost your damage, but it isn't very effective in the endgame. The Stolen Vitality improves the health of your minions, so you will gain more ward when you consume them. The Survival of the Cruel is extremely useful during the campaign, as it offers health leech. You can also take Dance with Dead and Grasp of Fate to increase your necrotic damage. With your endgame setup, those passives are not needed, so you should refund them. The Apocrypha is universally useful as it grants mana regen and intelligence. The Unholy Torment and Duskbringer are very valuable, as they add flat spell damage for your torment. The Doom Herald grants more damage when you channel the Profane Veil. You will take slightly less damage if you invest 5 points into Harrowing Armor, Dark Protections, and Wither. Thanks to the Fleeting Crone, you will constantly have the haste buff with an increased effect. Lastly, the Wreak Havoc grants you Crit Multiplier, which is converted into more damage for Torment. The Chthonic Fissure creates a rift in the ground that deals a bit of damage and releases spirits. Upon contact, the spirits apply the Curse of Torment, which is the main source of damage in this build. Most of your damage scaling comes from the Twisted Waves and Grim Tide, which grants you more damage per point of necrotic resistance or critical strike multiplier. You will also deal more damage against bleeding or poisoned enemies. The Stygian Current paired with the Gloom and Flames increase the frequency of your spirits, making it easier to apply your torment. This skill inflicts your target with a Curse of Spirit Plague, which deals a small amount of necrotic damage. In this build it is used to buff your torment damage even more. The Pestilence grants you global increased damage as you continue to cast this skill. The Enfeeblement weakens the enemies you hit, and the Anguish causes them to run in fear. Note that the enemy can be feared only once. The Hemorrhage causes your enemies to bleed, which is the condition needed for the Torment to deal more damage. The Transplant is your movement skill. You should cast this as soon as it goes off cooldown, as it also restores your mana and grants you the Bone Armor buff. The Acolyte's Fervor also grants you haste and frenzy buffs for 3 seconds. The Azure Veins and Pale Blood restore your mana, but only if you hit at least one enemy. The Bone Armor and its upgrades grant you the Bone Armor buff, which reduces the damage you take. Profane Veil is a very powerful defensive skill that makes you dodge any incoming hit when you keep channeling it. In this setup, it is also used to generate a lot of ward. With the Vampiric Pool notable, you will consume your minions to get ward based on their maximum health. You will also deal more damage with your torments applied during channeling the Profane Veil. Thanks to the Stream of Profanity, you will lower the cooldown of the Veil by spamming any curse skill. With this skill, you will debuff your enemies, but more importantly, create a bone prison that can be consumed to generate a high amount of ward. The bone prison traps enemies inside, but you will use it mostly to generate ward. The Sigil of Mortality applies a mark for death, which causes enemies to take more damage. With the Marrow Thief, you will occasionally gain bone armor when you kill enemies affected by the curse. In the Black Sun timeline, you can choose the Critical Strike Multiplier or Void Resistance. The resistance bonus is usually better, as it allows you to get more necrotic resistance elsewhere. The Age of Winter offers another simple choice. You can take the cold or physical resistance, depending on what you currently need more. The Spirits of Fire timeline offers you the possibility to shred the necrotic resistance of your enemies, which is very helpful against bosses. But you can also pick fire resistance, and improve your damage via stacking even more necrotic resistance instead. In the Reign of Dragons timeline you can pick one of the resistance bonuses, or get a critical strike avoidance, which is more important for your overall survivability. At the Ending the Storm timeline you can simply pick the lightning resistance blessing, but the ward-related bonuses are also worth considering, especially if you don't have the necessary unique item combination. This concludes today's guide. We encourage you to try this out yourself if you are a fan of damage over time builds. Have a good day, and see you next time.